Somewhere off the coast of the Cayman Islands, a fisherman pulls a glassy balloon from the water. It is the size of a grapefruit, translucent, and inside it, curled like a question mark, is a fish longer than the container holding it. Then he sees the small head at one end, the tail at the other. The balloon is not a balloon, it is a stomach, still attached to a 4-inch predator that swallowed something twice its length and could not finish the job. The teeth did not kill this animal. The venom did not kill it. Its own meal did. Now look at that picture one more time, because almost everything you assume about it is wrong. You are not looking at a giant fish that ate something small. You are looking at the opposite. The predator is the small shape, barely longer than your finger, wrapped around prey that should have been impossible to swallow. And it tried anyway. That is the part the photographs never quite communicate. The animal we call the black swallower is not a sea monster in the way the title of any video about it suggests. It is something stranger. It is what hunger looks like when it stops negotiating. To understand why a fish would gamble its life on a meal it cannot possibly digest, you have to stop thinking about predators the way nature documentaries usually frame them. Forget the lion. Forget the shark. Forget the idea of a hunter that picks its target, calculates the risk, and strikes when the odds favour it. None of that applies down here. The black swallower lives in a column of water between roughly 700 and 2,700 metres below the surface, in a zone scientists call the bathypelagic. There is no sunlight at that depth. There is no plant life. There is almost no food. And there is no second chance. Picture that for a second. A predator the size of a TV remote, hovering in absolute blackness, in water cold enough to slow every chemical reaction in its body, waiting for something that may not arrive for days, sometimes weeks. When something finally does arrive, it is rarely the right size, it is rarely the right shape, it is rarely safe, and the swallower has one decision to make: take the meal or starve. The whole architecture of this animal, its missing ribs, its reduced fins, its stretchable body, its absurd jaw, was built around that one decision. Everything you find strange about it is the consequence of saying yes when every other predator on Earth would say no. But before we get inside the body, you need to feel the size correctly. Most images of the black swallower exaggerate it. They show the swollen stomach and let your brain fill in a body to match. The real animal is small. Adults reach somewhere around 15 to 25 centimeters in length, which means the predator itself is shorter than a standard ruler. It is not built for power. It is not built for speed. It is barely built for survival in any normal sense. If you held one in your hand, you would assume it was prey. Down here, that assumption would be the mistake, because the deep ocean does not reward strength. It does not reward muscle, or armor, or aggression. The animals that win at 2,500 meters are not the biggest. They are the cheapest to run. Big bodies burn calories the environment cannot supply. A large predator in a calorie-poor zone is a slow-motion starvation experiment. So the deep keeps producing small predators with one extreme adaptation each, because one extreme adaptation is what fits inside the energy budget. The swallower's adaptation is the willingness to eat anything that brushes against it, and the body to attempt it. That is the trick. The deep does not reward strength. It rewards bad ideas that occasionally work. Now look at the jaw, because this is where most people stop and assume they understand the animal. They see a wide mouth and long inward-pointing teeth and decide that the jaw is the weapon. It is not. The teeth are not built for killing. They are built for one thing: making sure that whatever enters the mouth cannot leave. Once prey is inside, those backward curving teeth function less like blades and more like a one-way ratchet. The prey can move forward, deeper into the swallower's body. It cannot move backward. That is the only job those teeth do. The real engineering is happening farther back. The swallower's jaw does not simply hinge open the way a typical fish jaw does. The bones at the back of the skull are loosely articulated, allowing the entire feeding apparatus to disarticulate and expand around prey of nearly any cross-section. Imagine a door whose hinges can pop free, swing outward in any direction, and then reset. That is closer to what is happening inside this animal's skull. The mouth becomes the diameter of the prey, regardless of geometry. There is no negotiating, no chewing, no breaking down. The prey is swallowed whole. Forget what you think a jaw does. This is not a bite. It is a long, terrible negotiation between an animal that cannot stop and an animal that cannot escape. And it takes time, sometimes a long time. For the entire duration of that swallowing, the predator is functionally paralyzed. It cannot swim. It cannot defend itself. It cannot do anything but keep working its prey deeper. If something larger were to find it in that moment, the meal would also be the death. The black swallower lives in a world where eating is the most dangerous thing it does, and it does it anyway. But the real engineering problem starts after the jaw closes. Here is where you have to throw out your normal understanding of what a stomach is. In almost every animal you have ever seen, the stomach is internal. It is contained inside ribs, surrounded by other organs, protected. In the black swallower, that arrangement is impossible. The prey is too big. A snake mackerel, one of its preferred meals, can be twice the swallower's length and roughly 10 times its mass. There is no internal cavity in any normal vertebrate body large enough to hold something like that. So evolution did the only thing it could. It got out of the way. The swallower has no ribs, none. The pelvic fins are reduced or effectively absent depending on the specimen. The body has been stripped of every structural feature that would obstruct a meal. The stomach, by contrast, is almost absurdly elastic. It can stretch to several times the volume of the rest of the body. As it stretches, the stomach wall becomes thinner and thinner until it is translucent. You can see the prey through it. You can see the curve of a fish, the eye, the silver scales, the position of the bones. From the outside, it stops being an organ and starts being a window. The stomach is not inside the fish anymore. The fish is inside the stomach. It does not store the meal. It wears it. Think about what that means physically. The animal is no longer streamlined. Its hydrodynamics, if it ever had any, are gone. The largest, most exposed feature of its body is now the digestion sac dragging behind it, full of something that is still recognizably another animal. Predators above can see it. Currents push against it. Movement becomes nearly impossible. The swallower has won, and it cannot move. The cost of the meal began the moment the mouth closed. But the worst part is not the exposure. The worst part is the chemistry. Down at 2,500 meters, the water is just above freezing. Cold slows every reaction. The enzymes that break down prey work, but they work at a fraction of their surface temperature rate. Digestion in the bathypelagic is slow, painfully slow. A large meal can take days to break down, and here is the problem the swallower cannot escape. The prey did not arrive sterile. Inside the swallowed fish, in its own gut, there is a population of bacteria that did not stop working when their host died. Those bacteria continue to ferment. They produce gas. They produce it faster than the swallower can digest the body around them. Picture that for a second. A fish in absolute darkness, paralyzed by its own meal, slowly being inflated from the inside by something it cannot reach. The gas has nowhere to go. The stomach is sealed around the prey. The pressure builds. The swallower becomes buoyant, and then the laws of physics take over. It rises, slowly at first, then faster. A creature that has spent its entire life in cold, crushing darkness begins drifting upward through water that gets steadily warmer, steadily brighter, steadily less familiar. It cannot swim back down. The gas is winning. The swallower is dying, but it is dying in the wrong direction. It is being lifted out of its own world by the very meal that was supposed to feed it. Remember the balloon from the beginning. The translucent sphere a fisherman pulls from the water near the Cayman Islands. You know now what filled it. You know now why almost every specimen humans have ever seen of this species was found floating at or near the surface, intact, gas distended, dead. The black swallower is one of the only predators on Earth that routinely kills itself by winning. It did not drown. It rose. That is the part the photographs never explain. The fisherman did not catch this animal. He met it. It travelled almost 2 kilometres vertically to find him, propelled by the failure of its own digestion, broadcasting a quiet biological tragedy to a species that had no idea what it was looking at. And here is the question that should be eating at you now, because it is the question evolution itself had to answer at some point. Why would any lineage, any genetic line, any species keep this strategy? If a meal kills you often enough to be noticed by humans hauling nets at the surface, the cost is real. The deaths are not rare anomalies. They are a recurring feature of the species. So why does evolution keep building this body? Why does the black swallower still exist? The answer is the strangest part of this whole story, and it has nothing to do with the swallower itself. The answer starts with an empty picture. Imagine the water column at 2,000 meters. No light, no motion, no sound except the occasional click of something biological that may be miles away. You could swim in any direction for an hour and find nothing. Not a fish, not a shrimp, not a scrap of food drifting down from above. The bathypelagic zone is the largest single habitat on Earth by volume, larger than every forest, every desert, every grassland, every shallow sea combined, and almost all of it is empty. That is the context the black swallower exists inside. Not a forest where prey is everywhere, not a reef where you can pick what you eat. A void. A nearly endless three-dimensional void where the next meal might be tomorrow, or might be next month, or might be never. In a place like that, the rules of predation get rewritten. Refusing food is not caution, it is suicide. Waiting for the right size is not patience, it is starvation. So the swallower eats what it can reach, not what it should, not what is safe, what it can reach. One survived meal funds weeks of life. One refused meal is one closer to running out of energy entirely. Multiply that math across an entire evolutionary history, and you get a body that says yes when every other animal in your kitchen table understanding of nature would say no. This is not a hunter. It is a gambler with no other table to play at. Imagine eating once a month, and the only thing on the menu is something that might kill you. That is not a thought experiment. That is the actual daily existence of a fish that has been doing this for millions of years. The swallower is not greedy. It is desperate. And down here, desperation is an adaptation. But desperation alone does not catch prey. The swallower still has to find it. And this is where you have to abandon another assumption. The assumption that deep-sea predators have huge eyes for a reason. Some do. The giant squid does, the barrel-eye fish does, but maintaining a large complex eye is metabolically expensive, and in true darkness, even the best eye reaches a hard limit. There is simply nothing to see. The swallower does not invest there. Its eyes are small. Its vision is unremarkable. The animal does not need to see its prey. It needs to feel it. Most fish have a lateral line, a row of sensory cells along the body that detects vibration and pressure changes in the surrounding water. In a deep-sea ambush predator, that lateral line is not a backup sense. It is the primary sense. The swallower does not stalk anything. It hangs in the water, motionless, and waits for the disturbance of something larger swimming nearby. When the disturbance is the right shape, the right speed, the right direction, the animal commits. It is not stalking. It is sitting in the dark, listening with its skin. And every meal is a decision the fish makes once and lives or dies with. Now here is the part almost nobody expects. The prey the swallower targets is not weak. It is not soft. It is not the easy option. The fish most commonly found inside swallower stomachs are snake mackerels and other long, muscular, fast-bodied predators. Animals that, by any reasonable accounting, should be hunting the swallower instead of the other way around. They are bigger. They are stronger. They are faster. They could win the fight. So why eat them? Because they are the only prey large enough to matter. In a zone where you might not eat again for weeks, a small fish does not buy you enough time. The math forces the swallower upward in the food chain, toward prey that can feed it for the long stretch of starvation it knows is coming. The prey is dangerous because it has to be. Anything smaller is not worth the metabolic cost of the meal itself. The swallower did not choose this diet. The diet chose the swallower. Its anatomy, the missing ribs, the expandable stomach, the unhinging jaw, is not a body that evolved to dominate. It is a body that evolved to be barely possible. Every absurd feature is a confession of what is missing from the deep. Small prey, reliable prey, safe prey. None of it is there. So the body adapted to the only prey that was. This is the moment the black swallower stops being a freak and starts being a system. And here is where you should remember something I planted at the beginning. The fish is 4 inches long. 4 inches. That fact felt like a curiosity in the first chapter, a setup for the absurdity of the meal. But it is the real reason almost nothing is known about this species. The swallower is small, transparent, scattered across one of the largest habitats on Earth, and effectively invisible to every method scientists use to study marine life. We do not have reliable population estimates. We do not know how long they live. We do not know if there are millions of them, or thousands, or something in between. We do not know if they are in trouble. You have seen more photographs of the surface of Mars than of this fish alive in its own habitat. It is not hiding. There is just too much dark to search. Almost every specimen science has ever examined arrived the same way the one at the start of this video did. Gas distended, floating, dead. Not collected, delivered. The species has documented itself almost entirely through its own failures. Every successful swallower, everyone that digested its meal and lived, stayed in the dark and was never seen by a human. We are studying an animal through the corpses of the unluckiest individuals it produces. That should change how you feel about the floating balloon. Because here is the other thing. When the swallower's meal kills it, the animal does not die in its own world. It dies displaced. It rises through water it has never seen, water that gets warmer with every meter, water that gets brighter as it approaches a surface its eyes were never built to handle. By the time it reaches the top, it is in a zone as alien to it as outer space is to us. The fish is still intact when humans find it. It is still recognizably itself, but it is dying in territory that has nothing to do with the life it lived. Almost everything that lives down there dies down there. This one does not. Its corpse is the only way most of us will ever meet it. Now look at the picture one more time. The fisherman near the Cayman Islands, the translucent stomach, the curled prey inside, the small body of the predator at the edges, and ask yourself what evolution thinks it is doing, building an animal like this over and over, because it does build it over and over. That is the next reveal. The black swallower is not the only animal that solved the deep this way. It is not even the strangest one. In completely separate evolutionary lineages, on different branches of the fish family tree, the same body keeps appearing. The gulper eel has it, a fish that is almost entirely mouth, with a body trailing behind it like an afterthought, capable of swallowing prey larger than itself. The viperfish has a version of it, long fangs that cannot close inside the mouth, a stomach that can stretch, a sit-and-wait posture that mirrors the swallower's. Different families, different ancestors, the same silhouette. If you saw one of these animals and called it a monster, fine, but the ocean built 3 of them in 3 different families, independently. That is not an accident. That is the deep telling you what it costs to live here. This is what scientists call convergent evolution, when unrelated species evolve the same solution because the same problem keeps producing the same answer. The problem in this case is scarcity. The answer is a body designed around the willingness to swallow too much. The deep ocean is not producing freaks. It is producing the same fish over and over every time a lineage tries to make a living down there. Which means the swallower's story is really the abyss's story. Its body is not unique to one species. It is the ocean's signature on anything that tries to be a predator at that depth. The mesopelagic and bathypelagic zones do not allow for picky eaters. They do not allow for safe meals. They do not allow for the kind of patient, calculating predator we see on land or near the surface. They allow for one thing: an animal willing to risk everything on a meal that might not work. And here is the scale shift you have to feel now. Recent estimates from oceanographic surveys suggest there is more fish biomass in the mesopelagic and bathypelagic zones than in all the rest of the ocean combined. Possibly far more. The biggest living layer on this planet is built on the same gamble the swallower writes on the outside of its body. Every predator down there is playing some version of the same hand. Take what comes. Pay the cost. Hope you survive the meal. The black swallower just makes the math visible. The whole zone runs on near failure. That is not a flaw. That is the engine. Which means the floating balloon at the start of this video was never just one fish's mistake. It was a snapshot of how an entire ocean works. The swallower is not the exception in the deep. It is the honest version of every animal down there. The ones we call beautiful, the ones we call mysterious, the ones we admire from a distance in nature documentaries, they are all doing the same desperate math. The swallower is the only one whose body shows the bill. And now look at the balloon one final time, because the picture has changed. A fisherman near the Cayman Islands hauls something glassy and strange from the water. Inside it, a prey fish curled. At the edges, a small predator. The body has travelled nearly 2 kilometres vertically since it died. It is carrying organic matter that should have stayed in the deep, locked in the slow chemistry of bathypelagic decomposition, never circulating again. Instead, it is here, at the surface, where scavenging fish, seabirds, currents, and shallow water bacteria can finally reach it. A pulse of nutrients delivered from a zone that almost never gives anything back. The swallower's death moves food upward, not down where most marine death falls. Up, into water where life is denser, where decomposition is faster, where the carbon and nitrogen and phosphorus locked inside that prey fish can re-enter circulation. One floating swallower is not much, but this happens constantly, quietly, across every ocean basin. A slow rain of accidental gifts from a zone we cannot see into. Look at the balloon one more time. It is not just a dead fish, it is a delivery. The predator that loses is still feeding the ocean, just not in the direction anyone expected. This is the part the photographs never communicate. The swallower is not a freak. It is not a monster. It is not even particularly unusual by the standards of the depth it lives in. It is what every deep predator looks like underneath the polite framing of nature television. It is hunger with a body around it. It is the cost of trying to be alive where almost nothing is. And when it fails, it carries a small piece of the deep upward into a world it never knew, so something else can use what is left. The stomach drifts upward through black water into the faint blue light of the shallows. The prey is still inside. The predator is still attached. The ocean keeps moving. The next swallower, somewhere far below, is already waiting in the dark for a meal it has not yet decided to risk its life for. It will decide yes. It always does.